So Tom, welcome first of all.
Thank you.
Before I let you all do all the talking, I would like to quickly frame why we've invited you on stage. So you are, I think, best known as a musician, but at the same time you're a film director, you have curated exhibitions. So we believe that there are a lot of parallels between fashion and the industries that you are active in. But at the same time, there's a lot of things done differently, and we would like to zoom in on that today. So I'm going to ask you about your creative process on the one hand, and then what I find personally very interesting is the extent to which you allow other people to join that creative process and interfere. So let's start with this part. How does it work? How do you make a new CD, a new film? Do you start from scratch? Fashion designers usually make mood boards. Is this something you do too, with sounds or with images?
Fashion designers do what?
They make mood boards, visual mood boards that contain the atmosphere that they want to transfer with their collection.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess there's a million ways of working, so it's I can only talk for myself. And
of course,
I think personally, mood boards. If you make mood boards, why would you make a film? Basically, like Polanski once said, you know, if I have a message, I would send you a fax. So I think for us, it's much more intuitive. Okay. There is no plan, there is no scheme, there is no strategy. It is just the process of working together, and that's where the best stuff comes from, if you ask me. But of course, film is different than music. Music is different than art, and fashion is I think, a very expensive way, expression of what you want to do. So they have difficulties.
Why do you think? Why do you
say
I mean,
expensive? Because you need you don't need a lot of money to take your guitar and write a song, but you need a whole team of people to create your vision. When you're a fashion designer, so that is the difference, of course.
Okay, but you do need a whole team as well to create a CD, right?
Oh well, you know, you could do it. You could do it by yourself easily, especially now where technology is so advanced that you can basically make it in your bedroom,
okay,
and then throw it on the internet and have very little intermediate. So.
Okay. Do you start with texts? Do you start writing the lyrics, or do you jam, or how does it work?
Well, we jam, and for me the melody is the most important thing. Okay. And if I have a melody, then I have an entry in the song, and then I write the lyrics the last. And but it all depends, you know. Sometimes you write a song on your own. Sometimes you jam with a whole band. Sometimes somebody gives you something to which you add, you know, an instrument or your vocals. But it's you know, there's so many ways of doing it. There's not one fixed way.
Okay. Do you feel that in a band there's a need of one, let's say, a puppet master, someone who runs the whole show and who is in charge and who makes the decisions, or is it more like a democracy? Well,
it's a bit like Tom York, the singer of Radiohead, says, in a band, we are the United Nations, and I am America.
Okay.
So there is a kind of a false democracy going on. Even in, I mean, the best bands, you know, you can't have too many cooks in the kitchen. On the other hand, you know, if the front man is completely going on his own trip, this will create friction that is not necessarily an asset to, you know, to a good result. So it's a thin line. Bands are per se very destructive, self-destructive entities. That is the charm also of, you know, rock music and pop music, is that it's not made to last really long, and that's why it's so explosive when it's good.
Okay.
So you know, but somebody has to take the lead. Yes, definitely.
In fashion, when you're a fashion brand, you sell your collection, and then once it's sold in the store, it's out of your hands in the sense that the consumer can buy your garment and combine it in ways that you didn't foresee. How do you feel about that as a musician? Where do you feel ends your part of the process? Imagine that another band covers your song or makes a remix. How does that make you feel? Do you feel like it's out of my hands, I don't care, or is it still your baby?
I think a lot of musicians are not really, you know, very talented in doing the business side of things. So me personally, I've been extremely lazy and at the same time extremely lucky to always have been part of a good, big record company who always did those things for us. You know, sometimes bad when they don't sell well or the promotion doesn't happen the way it should, and sometimes good. But I've always wanted to be part of this. You know, record companies, I don't know if you have a equivalent in fashion of record companies. They're basically a bank. And, you know, under their, in their roster, you can release your records. And if it's a good record company, you can inherit, you know, the tradition that is there. We were in Island Records for 4 records. And Island Records was the record company of Grace Jones and U2 and Bob Marley. And so we were part of that. Tom Waits, PJ Harvey. So we were part of that family. But now record companies have a bit lost that kind of, you know, that kind of a push and that kind of importance because of downloading and because of the fact that, you know, people don't really necessarily buy the records anymore. So they've become a little bit redundant. But I've always, like I said, always been lazy and happy to be part of a house and to then say, okay, I've done my work up until here, and now you sell this shit, okay? Just do it. And don't,
and you
know,
don't get involved in that process.
Well, I do. I mean, I do in promotion. You do interviews, and those can be, you know, those can be deadly, but it's part of your job. And you know, a good interview can be fun too. You know, sometimes.
Let's hope this is one.
You know, you know, it is good to be surrounded. Is probably 50% to be surrounded in a good way. Is 50% of what you as a creative person, you know, need. Apart from talent and stamina and something to say, you know. So being surrounded by people that you trust and being surrounded by people who don't necessarily agree with you, but are complementary in a way that, actually with people that you hardly ever agree with, in my opinion, it's good to have that kind of an energy where there's always a dialogue going on and not just everybody high-fiving each other the whole time.
Okay, talking about surrounding yourself, do you have someone you consider a mentor, someone who guides you along the way, or who you turn to in case you are in doubt?
Yeah, but they're not necessarily people from my discipline. I mean, they could be actors or directors or...
Can you name someone who's...
Well, I mean, it all depends also what. I mean, I lost my father quite early, so then you tend to have mentors. You need mentors more than other boys, I think. I mean, I lost him when he was 17, so I was always kind of like looking for advice with, let's say, older people. So I'm not sure if I'm the right person to ask that, because I've always had the need to have that. Well, I mean, for example, the actor Jos de Pauw is somebody who writes. He's an actor. He's an intelligent person. He knows. He's older than me. That would be somebody that I sometimes could you know, go to ask things. But apart from that, you have to do it by yourself, and you have to trust your gut feeling.
Yeah. Do you mentor yourself? Do you like see younger people that you believe have potential and that you feel you could guide or help?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't present myself as you know, let me guide you, young man. But if they ask it, I'm always flattered, because I did that when I was a kid too, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm always flattered if they do. Yeah.
Talking about branding, I'm not sure if you like the word or DNA. How do you see that? Do you feel that Tom Barman is a brand, or that you are a brand, or is it something that you try to keep far away from?
I mean, it probably happens, but it's not something we set out to do. First of all, when we started, it was in the 90s. It was still a time to not be aware of those things, not interfere with marketing side of it. For example, I'll give you an example. In the 90s, when you were in a band and you would sell your music to advertising, you were dead. You were artistically dead.
Yeah.
Now we are in a period where if you don't sell your music to advertising, you are dead. So there is over the last 10 years, there's been an unbelievable change in the way it's perceived as the evil to what it is now, which
like
is basically, I mean, I can imagine young bands that are, you know, boasting, you know, at the bar to each other that they have, you know, the music, they got an advertising for Coca-Cola, or they got one for Nike or something. So it has actually become something cool. Now, I'm from the generation then where I still find this very hard to deal with, you know, and so I have a very hypocritical way of dealing with it, which is basically, if it's there and it's well paid, I'll do it, but I won't shout about it.
Okay. And is this something that you organize yourself, or do you feel that it's the management who should take care of it? I'm going there because I'm curious as to how you balance creative freedom and commercial success.
Oh, but creative freedom should be absolute.
Freedom.
It should be absolute. But it should not guide you into stupid decisions or arrogant behavior, in the sense that, you know, I'm an artist and fuck off everyone, this is what I do. That's simply ridiculous. But I think the beginning of it, the genesis of it, the idea that you want to bring across, that you want to make, whether it be, you know, clothes or music or film or art, should be absolutely free. And there is many examples from people who have built a beautiful career on complete way out their things and you know, on things that they've created in a very free manner. But there is, of course, the business side to it, which shouldn't be a problem, again, if you're well surrounded.
Okay.
So I would suggest to, if there's younger people here who are starting out, is to not only find your creative mentors, but also early on, you know, find people that you trust, that you could work with on a managerial level. Yes. Yeah. You know, and that's, in our case, that was like a friend from high school. So that's usually where, you know, this can be dangerous too. I'm not saying this is the right way to do it, but I've been working together now for 23 years with the same manager, which is a small miracle in this business.
Absolutely. Producers, how does that work? We've been talking about it quite a lot, and it's an interesting concept that we don't really know in fashion. I think as bigger fashion brands have like merchandisers or product managers or stylists after a collection is made, or before, it depends a bit on the structure, who kind of rebuild it to a commercial or to a working line. And whereas a producer, every musician, big, small, starting more or bigger, has a producer who produces the record, right? And I think that's an interesting concept, because it's someone in between you and the final product. How do you experience that?
Well, producers in music is different than producers in film, and I guess producers in fashion. In film, they're the ones that get you the money to make your film. In music, they're the ones that make sure that you don't kill each other. They have a very important psychological role, thank you very much. Role in the studio. Their bands, like I said, are explosive entities, and producers are most of the time they're there to calm things down.
And when are they there? Are they there from the very start?
They're there from the very start, but they're much more artistically involved than producers from film.
Okay.
Because they record you, they select the songs.
Oh, they do.
They give you a hard time. My favorite producer is the one that is content with the material, with what we have, even after me. So he should be the last one to say, okay, this song is done. That is what I like in a producer, basically a pain in the ass.
Okay.
So producers in music are very important. You have to trust them. Like, I'm kind of making a caricature, of course, a pain in the ass when I say this. I mean, you have to trust the guy, you talk to him, you go on, you know, several lunches together, you know, the thing. And then you talk about music. And they are very important, because they will supervise the sound of your records, And they will, you know, I'll give you two examples of two different producers that are very known. Prince is a very known pop star, but he also produces. Now, Prince, he imposes his sound on the artist that he's producing. Meaning, every artist that is produced by Prince sounds like Prince. Now, you have another producer like Rick Rubin, who's very known, he's done the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He's the opposite. He will adapt like a chameleon to the band that he's producing. He will cipher himself away, if that's correct English. I don't think it is.
I think everyone understands.
Can you help me help it? He will...
I don't know what you want to say.
Erase himself and his ego from the process in order to help the vision of the band.
Okay.
So, but producers are very important because they, like I said, they decide on the sound, they decide on much of the end product, like you say.
And then how do you find the right person? Do you look for someone who has done like similar projects, similar bands, or just the opposite, not at all? Is it...
Sorry.
How do you find that right producer for your CD?
Oh, we've fucked up many times. We have made wrong decisions. It's a leap of faith, as they say. It is something you can't foresee too much. You can have those lunches, you can talk about music, but they can still end up as being the wrong choice.
And ideally, do you work with the same person every time, or is it better to switch?
Well, if you have a good experience, yeah, you may want to do that, yeah.
Okay. And can you produce a record yourself, or do you necessarily need one?
Yeah, but I'm very, very much involved. I just don't necessarily need to have my name as a producer. I'm already there as a songwriter, so... but I'm very involved. But like I said, it is a very tiring thing to be a frontman, songwriter, and producer.
Absolutely.
And then you need somebody like a satellite who can, chase, the other musicians to deliver their parts and to make decisions when you're basically, writing lyrics or doing something else. Okay.
And is it mostly someone experienced that you prefer to work with, or someone who just started out? Yeah,
I've always gravitated to older people. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Also because they have a history. It's simple as that. And you can be the hippest little fuck that's walking around, but if you don't know your history, if you don't know where everything comes from, and if you don't understand that on a deep level, then it's just you're just following trends, or you just that's never interested me. Okay. That's why I always gravitated to people who have this points of reference where they can you can talk about, I want this to sound like a German police series on TV.
And they know what you're talking about.
And then they know what you're talking about. Okay. I want this to look like a terrorist group in that's maybe a bad example.
Reference.
I'm so
bad
sorry.
Timing.
I was thinking more. Yeah, you need people who can reference and who have this kind of like history.
Very, very
Again,
last
that's
question.
Being surrounded by. That is something that you choose yourself. That is really something you choose yourself. You choose by who you are surrounded. And that says a whole lot about you.
Good. Very last question. The theme of today is imagine. Imagine that there were no boundaries, that you could do whatever you wanted without any limitations. What would it be?
You mean like on this instant, or?
Right now.
What would it be? Get some sleep. That would be nice.
Okay, and maybe then professionally, like a little bit longer than just right now. No,
well, imagine. Oh, come on. Yeah, I think the most painful thing is the fact that we're ruining the world. So let's keep it to that, because everybody feels that, I hope. And we hear a lot of people who can decide whether they trash the world a little bit more or change it.
Okay, perfect. I think that's a beautiful final conclusion. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.